Akwe, Taluisi John Murray. I'm reading The Power of Ceremony from the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's final report. Thank you for listening. The Power of Ceremony. Sacred ceremony has always been at the heart of Indigenous cultures, law, and political life. When ceremonies were outlawed by the federal government, they were hidden away until the law was repealed. Historically, and to a certain degree, even at present, Indigenous ceremonies that create community bonds, sanctify laws, and ratify treaty making have been misunderstood, disrespected, and disregarded by Canada. These ceremonies must now be recognized and honored as integral, vital, ongoing dimension of the truth and reconciliation process. Ceremonies also reach across cultures to bridge the divide between Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal peoples. They are vital to reconciliation because of their sacred nature, and because they connect people, preparing them to listen respectfully to each other in a difficult dialogue. Ceremonies are an affirmation of human dignity. They feed our spirits and comfort us even as they call on us to reimagine or envision finding common ground. Ceremonies validate and legitimize treaties, family and kinship lines, and connections to the land. Ceremonies are also acts of memory sharing, mourning, healing, and renewal. They express the collective memory of families, communities, and nations. Ceremonies enable us to set aside, however briefly, our cynicisms, doubts, and disbelief, even as they console us, educate us, and inspire hope. They have an intangible quality that moves us from our heads to our hearts. They teach us about ourselves, our histories, and our lives. Ceremony and ritual have played an important role in various conflict and peace-building settings across the globe, including North America, where Indigenous nations have their own long histories of diplomacy and peacemaking. Ceremonial rituals have three functions in the peacemaking process. First, they create a safe space for people to interact and learn as they take part in the ceremony. Second, they enable people to communicate non-verbally and process their emotions. Third, ceremonies create an environment where change is made possible. Worldviews, identities, and relationships with others are transformed. Those in attendance at TRC events learn to acknowledge and respect Indigenous ceremonies and protocols by participating in them. The Commission intentionally made ceremonies the spiritual and ethical framework of our public education work, creating a safe space for sharing life stories and bearing testimonial witness to the past for the future. The Commission's national events were designed to inspire reconciliation and shape individual and collective memory by demonstrating the core values that lie at the heart of reconciliation: respect, courage, love, truth, humility, honesty, and wisdom. These values are known by many Aboriginal people as the 7 sacred teachings. They are also in the ancient teachings of most world religions. Each national event focused on one of these teachings, working closely with local Aboriginal communities and various regional organizations, representatives of the parties to the settlement agreement, and other government and community networks. The Commission took great care to ensure that the proper ceremonies and protocols were understood and followed throughout each event. Smudges, sacred pipe, and water ceremonies, cedar brushings, songs, and drumming occurred on a regular basis throughout. At each event, a sacred fire was lit and cared for by elders and firekeepers. Water ceremonies were performed by the women who were recognized as protectors of the water. The sacred fire was also used for ongoing prayers and tobacco offerings, as well as to receive the tissues from the many tears shed during each event. The ashes from each of the sacred fires were then carried forward to the next national event to be added in turn to its sacred fire, thus gathering in sacred ceremony the tears of an entire country. The Commission's mandate also instructed that there be a ceremonial transfer of knowledge at the national events. Coast Salish artist Luke Marston was commissioned by the TRC to design and carve a bentwood box as a symbol of this transfer. The box was steamed and bent in the traditional way from a single piece of West Coast red cedar. Its intricately carved and beautifully painted wood panels represent First Nations, Inuit, and Métis cultures. The bentwood box is a lasting tribute to all the residential school survivors and their families, both those who are living and those who have passed on, including the artist's grandmother, who attended Cooper Island Residential School. This ceremonial box traveled with the Commission to every one of its national events, where offerings, public expressions of reconciliation, were made by governments, churches, and other faith communities, educational institutions, the business sector, municipalities, youth groups, and various other groups and organizations. The Truth and Reconciliation Bentwood box, along with many other sacred items the TRC received, will be housed permanently in the National Centre for Truth and Reconciliation at the University of Manitoba in Winnipeg. Thank you. This has been The Power of Ceremony from the TRC Final Report. Thank you.